Despite being a pretty controversial figure in the world of MMA, Conor McGregor is one of the most talented fighters that came out of the UFC. But when it comes to MMA, you need more than just personality and trash talking to make it through. His career has been anything but straightforward, with him dipping his toes into boxing. So what's next for the Irishman? Let's find out. Starting with his one-year retirement. Despite McGregor announcing his retirement from UFC in 2019, he returned just a year later. This time, though, he opted to fight in the welterweight division. He fought Donald Cerrone and won via technical knockout after just 40 seconds. The victory over Cerrone made McGregor the first UFC fighter to deal knockout finishes in the featherweight, lightweight, and welterweight divisions. That's actually pretty impressive if you think about it. Anyway, fans grew hopeful of Conor's return, but once again, he announced he was retiring. But as we all know, the Irishman can't stay away from the limelight. So that lasted until 2021, when he returned to face Dustin Poirier. The pair had fought once before, back in 2014. This time around, though, Conor lost via technical knockout. It was the first loss via knockout in his career, and that sent a shockwave through social media because he's known as one of the best fighters around. A few months later, the pair fought a rematch, but McGregor lost via technical knockout again after the ringside doctor ruled him unable to continue. The Irishman had broken his tibia. This did cause some tension between him and the UFC because, according to the fighter, Dustin didn't land a blow on him, but it was officially ruled that Poirier won after he managed to damage his opponent. That was McGregor's last fight. While nothing's set in stone, UFC President Dana White has declared that the MMA fighter will return, likely in autumn of 2022. His two most likely opponents, Dustin Poirier and Nate Diaz, two fighters that have beaten him in the past. Well, will he try out boxing again? Conor has always been experimental. A few years ago, he started losing interest in MMA, which concerned fans and the UFC. His attention turned to boxing, and after long negotiations, he agreed to fight Floyd Mayweather Jr., but Mayweather won comfortably, and the fight drew 4.3 million pay-per-view buys, marking it as the second most watched combat sports match in history. With his heart elsewhere, McGregor was stripped of both his UFC titles. Honestly, that's kinda embarrassing, but Conor didn't seem to care much. He was more focused on doing what he wanted to do, typical McGregor behavior. But fans were wondering if he's going to try his hand at boxing again in the near future. The thing is, there's a high possibility that he will, because if there's one thing we know about the Irishman, it's that he's not a quitter. Despite losing to Mayweather, he's not a sore loser who gives up after trying only once. And we've seen it by the way he's always gotten back up after being knocked down. So, chances of the MMA fighter trying out boxing once again are pretty much possible. And what does the future hold? Despite speculation of a return to the UFC later in 2022, the future is still uncertain for Conor McGregor. The man known as the Notorious has become notoriously hard to predict, especially with his distractions off the canvas. Judging by the words of insiders like Dana White, it seems like Conor still feels he has unfinished business. The way his last fight ended has left a bitter taste in the Irishman's mouth, and the born winner is pretty keen to set the record straight. McGregor still has time on his side though. At 33, he has years ahead of him. No doubt being stripped of his titles will rankle too. Plus, his fans would love nothing more than for him to commit to reclaiming them so once more he can sit upon his MMA throne. But at the same time, he's gonna have to up his game if he wants to reclaim his titles. Dustin and Nate are no amateur fighters. They've proven that time and time again. So our Irishman will have to take things pretty seriously to defeat them in the ring. It seems like he has been training, but at the same time, the fighter has been partying too. Looks like if there's one thing he knows, Conor knows how to keep a work-life balance. The Notorious has only a few months before he makes his return, and fans are concerned if he's even ready. Despite him posting a few sneak peeks from his training, he still hasn't shaken off the party boy image he has. Well, one can only hope for the best for him. We wish you all the luck in the world, Conor. Now, in other related news, starting with Curtis Blaydes admits he's a pessimist when it comes to earning a UFC title shot. Curtis Blaydes is very realistic when it comes to his spot in the heavyweight rankings and what it will take to eventually earn a shot at UFC gold. Despite consistently competing against top 10 ranked competition, the 31-year-old contender is rarely mentioned in the title conversation, even with a 6-1 record in his past 7 fights, including 3 knockouts along the way. While he does have a pair of losses to current UFC champ Francis Ngannou in previous fights, Blaydes still didn't receive much consideration after the promotion started hinting at an interim title fight taking place in 2022. Now, that might annoy a lot of fighters, but don't count him among them. Maybe it's because I'm a pessimist, but I don't expect it to be easy, he said. With a showdown scheduled against Tom Aspinall in the UFC London main event on Saturday, he refuses to walk down that same road. road, which is why he's just worried about getting a win with the knowledge that a title fight is almost certainly not next for him. Curtis, don't worry. We believe in you. Next up, Hasim Rahman Jr. reacts to Dana White's dismissal as Jake Paul opponent. Hasim Rahman Jr. has been written off by several fight pundits and even MMA's biggest promoter, UFC president Dana White. As the son of a former heavyweight boxing champ, Hasim Rahman looks forward to proving them all wrong. He said that he can't wait to punch the kid in the face. White made it seem like he'd choose Kenzie Morrison, the son of former heavyweight boxing champ Tommy Morrison, over Rahman Jr. as Jake Paul's next opponent. When asked about Paul versus Rahman Jr. matchup this past Saturday, White pointed to Morrison's knockout win over Rahman Jr. when they fought in April. He believes the restrictions put on him mean that Paul and his team are scared of what he might do with no cap on his weight. He accused the social media star turned boxer's coach of pulling a fast one on him to get the fight and revealed a strict penalty for weight overages that could leave him making just $5,000 to show up for the fight. The fighter further stated that it's going to be a massacre in August. Are you excited? Because we know we are. And lastly, Jon Jones fires back at Tiny Curtis Blaydes. Bro, you literally sound ridiculous. There's an easy way to get Jon Jones to clap back, and that's by doubting his abilities. UFC London headliner Curtis Blaydes is the latest to find that out after he predicted the ex-champ would lose to Stipe Miocic in an interview on MMA Fighting's The Fighter vs. the Writer. Focus on your fight this weekend, Tiny. You've been rooting against me for years now, Jones wrote on Twitter. Curtis opined that Jones lacked the power or the heavyweight conditioning to thwart Miocic, who holds the record for the most consecutive title defenses at 3. He said educated fans understand the fight, which is expected to take place later this year, is more of a coin toss than a certainty. The majority of John's UFC knockout wins are the result of his fearsome ground and pound, but he scoffed at the idea that he couldn't stop Miocic or go the distance given his 8 trips to the scorecard in the light heavyweight division where he thrice held the belt. Ticked off, the fighter told Curtis that he literally sounds ridiculous. Well, that's one way to get on somebody's nerves, we'll admit that much. Blaydes may have the opportunity to prove Jones wrong if he's successful against Tom Aspinall on Saturday at UFC London. The 31-year-old American has won back-to-back fights since a knockout loss against Derek Lewis and is 11-3 with one no contest in his Octagon career. Though more importantly, Blaydes has the wrestling skills to test Jones' heavyweight conditioning. What's more is that he will give up 4.5 inches in reach to the former champ, who's been bulking up non-stop since relinquishing the light heavyweight title in preparation for a heavyweight run. Well, whatever the case is, we wish them both the best of luck. That's a wrap for this video. What do you think of McGregor making a comeback? Do you think he has what it takes to earn back his UFC titles? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.